Hey, 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 good morning, everybody. It's week 2. It's already starting to get pretty damn crazy out there. Who are we starting? Who are we sitting? We're going to let you know all that and more here in about 30 seconds. Welcome back, everybody. It's Sunday. It's week 2. We've already kind of had an eventful week 1 and 2. Man, there's already a lot of players out there that are hurt. There's players out there that won't be playing today. I mean, it's getting crazy out there. On my left, my man Jeff. Jeff, how are we doing this morning?
Doing great, Mikey. Sunday morning, always the best morning of the week. Although we are down a man this morning. Joe is shortly on his way to Fenway Park to see the illustrious Pearl Jam, who have been around a long time. We're jealous that he's going to the show. Miss him today, but it should be a good show.
Yeah, no, Pearl Jam at Fenway. That's a double bucket list for me. I've always wanted to go to Fenway just for a Sox game and to catch Pearl Jam, one of my favorite bands of all time, probably my favorite band of all time. Nothing like Joe, but gosh,
No
dang,
doubt.
that'd be awesome. So glad he's having fun. I'm mad he's having fun. I'm jealous he's having fun. But good luck to you, buddy. We hope you have a great time, and we'll definitely be ready for you next week. We'll go ahead and just get this thing started. So who's playing today? Who's not playing today? Do you got a pretty good list going on there?
I mean, we kind of covered it. Hopefully everybody caught last night's show. We got DFS Chalk Talk 9 p.m. Saturday night. So if you haven't caught that, tune in this coming Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So we all saw what happened Thursday night, and we got into it a little bit at length last night with Tua, unfortunately. And that doesn't affect necessarily today's games because they already played on Thursday. But our thoughts go out to Tua and his family. I had my thoughts on it about it. You guys gave your take. So if anybody wants to go back and listen to that, they can pull up DFS Chalk Talk from last night. So obviously, biggest one, Christian McCaffrey. That's a big deal. It's odd, Mike, because, and we got into this a little bit last night. The Niners didn't necessarily disclose any injury until maybe an hour and a half before last week's game. So you figure he's good to suit up for this week. And then the next thing you know, he's on IR and he's out, a month? So this is quite the surprise, I'd say, right?
And that kind of came out of nowhere, especially for the guys who went out there and drafted him 101. Man, I feel terrible for the people that took him at the 101 spot. I'm thinking that Jordan Mason might be a really good play here. I think Jordan Mason might be I think he's going to get you at least 16 to 20 points. Are you feeling Jordan Mason in this matchup today?
100%. I mean, especially if you're looking at a DFS standpoint, Jordan Mason on FanDuel, at least he's 5,500. That's a huge discount for a guy who had a big week and seems to fit well, or any running back for that matter in the Kyle Shanahan offensive system seems to fit well. So I expect him to have a pretty big game, and they are. Let's see here. San Francisco's at Minnesota, indoor game. So I expected a decent amount of scoring. Jordan Mason, very much high on my list, especially from a DFS standpoint. How about yourself, Mike?
Yeah, I like him. He's cheap. I think that you're going to see probably a number close to 70 to 80% owned on him. That's going to be the one thing that I kind of have against him in this. But I mean, a lot of times you just got to take the lump of ownership and get out on the outside. Once again, I mean, you want to definitely catch us on the DFS Chalk Talk for any of those DFS plays for sure, because we're going to give you those little secrets like that are going to help you out.
And a couple others, Mike, too. We just confirmation just before the show started. Looks like Justin Fields will be the guy today at Denver for Pittsburgh. Not necessarily a big week last week. He had some, not a whole lot, but Russell Wilson, I mean, if Fields has a big game today, that could spell the end for Russell Wilson, who I'm pretty sure you said before the start of the season he would be gone quickly anyways. So you called that one maybe about a month ago, Mike.
Yeah, I do feel like Justin Fields is a better quarterback. I got to watch a few years of Russell Wilson being a Denver Bronco. To me, they had a pretty good receiving core over there. I don't think that Russell Wilson did them any favors now, although Bo Nix isn't making them look much better either. So it could have been a Broncos problem, not a Russell Wilson problem. I don't think that Justin Fields played very well last week, enough to at least earn the starting spot away from Russell Wilson. But every week Russell Wilson misses, that's a week that it could happen, because Justin Fields is a very explosive quarterback when he wants to be. And it's seeming like he wants to be. It's just seeming like they couldn't really get it put together last week. I feel like at Denver is going to be a real feel-good game. I think they're going to be able to tromp them pretty well and get it done. I think Justin Fields is going to be a solid play today too. So
yeah, and I mean, it's a new offense for both him and Wilson, so there's going to be a little rustiness or a little time to figure out what's going on in Pittsburgh. But we all know that the talent that Justin Fields has, I don't really care about the score, not for nothing. All we care about is points. And Justin Fields in the past has certainly proven that he can get you. I don't care. He might throw for 170 yards, but he might also rush for 170 yards and a touchdown. So we all know the potential for Justin Fields from a fantasy standpoint. So I'm excited to see what happens today in Denver.
Absolutely. The other notable injury, Jordan Love, he is out today. It looks like Malik Willis will be the starter there, which, thank goodness, there's at least a starter on my Scott Fish lineup. I started the year with Aiden O'Connell, JJ McCarthy, and Tua Tagovailoa, thinking I was pretty well set up in July, and by September we're not. It's not good. We're not looking good here, getting up into the winter months. So Malik Willis is also on my team now, and he'll be starting. I don't have any high expectations for that team at all. We'll actually be able to get into that more a little bit once we get into the questions, because I know there's a Jaden Reed question or two in there. And wow, Jaden Reed's good, but wow, Malik Willis, he's not. Unless he did a lot of stuff on the offseason to improve that I haven't seen yet. So.
No question, which again, we talk a lot about DFS, which makes me like Josh Jacobs even more from a DFS standpoint. I mean, he had 18 touches last week. I expect him to have over 20 with Malik Willis back there. So I'm looking forward to see what Josh Jacobs has in Green Bay.
Yeah, if they have any productivity, it's going to be in that backfield. I like Josh Jacobs a lot today. He was also in my lineup as well, for sure. With that, we'll go ahead and get rocking and rolling into the questions. We got this one with this beautiful, beautiful woman here. April Gilbert says, hey, Jackson Smith and Jigba or Brian Robinson Jr. in the flex spot? And then she corrects herself, Jackson. We knew who you're talking about.
Well, that's funny. We'll start calling him Jason Smith and Jigba going forward, just like Joe with his David and Yoko. So going forward, Jason Smith and Jigba. So to me, this is a little bit of an obvious one. I'd say we always say the tie goes to the running back. Brian Robinson Jr. had a decent week last week. You still got Austin Eckler back there. We saw what Jaden Daniels can do with his legs, but just the potential for targets, I think, weighs or sways more towards Brian Robinson Jr. than Jason Smith and Jigba. What do you think?
I agree with that. Actually, I think Brian Robinson Jr. is the play here. He didn't do too awful bad last week. Now the split with Eckler sucks for sure. But I feel like it's still good enough that you're able to get the job accomplished, right? You're not going to be getting anything crazy out of him, but I feel like if you're going to get anything out of Jackson Smith, it's going to be a 3 for 4, something like that. Could be 70 and a touchdown, but it could very easily on the other side of things be 3 for 33, and that's it.
Right. And
you're going to have a volume play with Brian Robinson.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The other factor in that too is you got Seattle at New England. New England surprised us a little bit last week against pulling out a win against Cincinnati. They're at home. They usually have a halfway decent defense, and Washington is home versus the Giants. So just matchup alone, I think that also adds to it.
Yep, I agree. I like that a lot. We got our man Trans-Siberian. What's happening, brother? Miss you all the time, man. Think about you all the time. You're one of my favorites out there. We got good evening, boys. Do I roll with A.J. Brown in the flex, or should I put Brandon Cooks in along with Collins and Rice? His other choices on his bench are Zach Moss, Jacoby Myers, and Jason Smith and Jigba. What do you think here, Jeff?
Well, and that's something to keep an eye on. I think we got an update just before the show started. It looks like A.J. Brown is trending maybe to not play. So that's something very much to keep an eye on. If he is playing, certainly roll with A.J. Brown. If he's not, I don't necessarily love Brandon Cooks. But if we're looking bench-wise, you got Moss, Myers, JSN. I mean, we just talked about JSN and why maybe that isn't necessarily the best play. Myers, the number 2 there in Vegas, and they're at Baltimore. That's a tough one. Moss, they're playing Kansas City this week, I believe. And of the running back of the crew, I would say maybe I'd go with him over Brandon Cooks. And Collins and Rice, though, are going to be – those are 2 great options, I would say, especially from Rice's standpoint. With Hollywood Brown out, that's an injury we actually forgot to mention to start this show. So Rice is a huge option there. But keep an eye on A.J. Brown. If he's playing, play him. If he's not, I would take Moss off the bench.
Yep, everything looks like it's leaning towards that he's going to be playing. I like him a lot better than the rest of these options. Honorable mention to Zach Moss. Zach Moss can get in the end zone. They really aren't doing anything offensively on that team. But that was last week. This could be like week 1 is the week of overreactions, right? Maybe they didn't have a really good game plan going in there. Maybe that was a game centered around T. Higgins. We don't know. But Zach Moss still didn't look bad, and he still got in the touch. He got you 71 yards last week. I really don't mind him that much, but I still think I just can't sit A.J. Brown. And like I said, if it looks like he's coming in there, I think I'm going to play him as well there.
No doubt. Absolutely.
We got our man Joe. Joe's going and being my hero today. He says are we going to flex Brian Robinson or Ayuk? Which one, Jeff?
That's a very good question there. I'll tell you, Ayuk certainly looked last week like he did sit out the preseason on a contract dispute because the rust was literally visible on that guy. He's talented, gets a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot. He does a lot with the targets that he's given. Just from an opportunity standpoint, I hate to beat a dead horse, but you got running back versus wide receiver, and the opportunity there more towards Brian Robinson than Ayuk, just because Jordan Mason poised for another big week. You got Debo's might have a big week. You got Kittle, could put up some numbers. So Ayuk might get you something, but I think the opportunity might be more there with Robinson. What do you think?
Yeah, I think volume is going to be the play here. I think Ayuk has a bounce back week though too. I feel like that team's without Christian McCaffrey. You're going to have to lean a little bit more on the Ayuk train, a little bit more on the Debo Samuel. Ayuk did not look ready to play football last week. I think again, that's the week 1 jitters. I think this week you're going to see him kind of come down to earth, but still give me the volume play on Brian Robinson until I can see that kind of improve there a little bit.
Yeah, and even though Eckler's there, Robinson still had 15 touches last week. He had 40 rushing yards, 49 receiving yards. So he's catching it out of the backfield. He had a rushing touchdown. I bet you can probably expect another 15 touches or so this week. It should be interesting to see, especially Jaden Daniels if he gets in the end zone rushing wise. But Robinson will have the opportunity.
Right. I agree with that right there. Boss Man is back. I hope we did you well last week, my man. It says, Boss Man, pick one to start: Devonta Smith, Chris Godwin, or DJ Moore. Who we starting right here, Jeff?
Wow. These are 3. This is a great one. Wow. Do I love this? So, geez, man. So you and I were really high on Chris Godwin last week. People kind of shrugged us off a little bit, and lo and behold, we turned out to be correct there. More, the funny thing is, Keenan Allen, is he out? And that's another one maybe we forgot to mention. Do we have an update on Keenan Allen, Mike?
Keenan Allen, the last I saw, he was trending towards not playing today. Still a game time decision. GTD.
Well, so I mean, I you know me, DJ Moore is one of my boys up there with Nico Collins. He is the opposite of AJ Dillon or Tyler Boyd. But Caleb Williams, man, did not did not look as good as everybody thought he was going to. And Godwin, man, I'll tell you, Baker, they're playing Detroit today. They're in Detroit. It's the highest over-under of the week. Even though I love Devontae Smith and those two, Smith and Godwin are the clear-cut number twos, but I'm trending. I'm leaning Godwin by a slight margin with Devontae Smith and DJ Moore literally right there behind him.
I just have one thing to say about this, buddy. We're going to stand up slowly. We're going to stand up even slower. Oh, we're going to stand up even slower, and then we're going to point at the back because we got the God Christmas shirt on today. We're going on full-on Baker today. We're loving Tampa today. Let's go. Chris Godwin, do not even blink. He's in my DFS lineup as well today. I love Chris Godwin. I always have. He's my second favorite outside of Cooper Kupp as my favorite fantasy players. And it's only because, man, these guys outside of the slot are so dangerous. They can get you so many points so fast. Get me lined up. It's definitely something that they're doing well, and they're doing it very well in Tampa. Let's go ahead and get to the next one.
And before you roll on to the next one, again, he's another great option DFS wise. He's only 6,200 on FanDuel. So I tell you, he had more receptions than Evans last week. They had the same amount of targets. Evans happened to get in the end zone twice versus Godwin once. But I mean, 6,200 on FanDuel, to me, is really low for him, and that allows you to get in those higher salaried guys DFS wise. So keep an eye on him.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And then Bossman says a full PPR pick. One for my flex. We got Alvin Kamara, Jerome Ford, Ramondre Stevenson, Chris Godwin, or DJ Moore. Man, he's going to put us to the pressure cooker on this one. What do you got here, Jeff? You can only pick one.
Wow.
It looks like you.
One. Good Lord. These are all great options, by the way. I don't know who else was drafting in that league, but I'll tell you did a hell of a job draft-wise. So, So right off the bat, even though I just said everything about Godwin, and I love the guy, but he is a receiver and has 8 targets versus Kamara, Ford, or Stevenson having that many more opportunities to get touches. And of the 3, gosh, I would say I'm actually going to go Stevenson, I think, just because of he had 25 carries last week. I don't see them giving him the ball less. And we thought Cincinnati would stack the box against him. They did, but he still had a lot of yards per carry. So I would say reluctantly, I'm starting him over Kamara, Ford, who were 2 great options.
Yeah, no, Kamara for me, I learned my lesson last week. I was out on Kamara pretty heavy. I was pretty out on the Saints. Saints really look good. You gave Derek Carr another year to put things together over there, and he did just that. I mean, he looked amazing. That team looked amazing. They looked like they were really shutting that other team down. So I think for me, it's Alvin Kamara. It's pretty close because I'm even right now in my Godwin shirt saying this, because I love Godwin a lot. It's between those two, and Ramondre Stevenson also, man, he looked like a tank last week. He looked like the full-on use beast number 1 that he was last year at the end of last season. So for me, give me both of those guys right there. Since I have to go out of those 3, because I don't like Jerome Ford and I don't like DJ Moore, give me DJ Moore when I see a better Caleb Williams out there. Alvin Kamara is my guy right here for sure.
You know what? Actually, after you saying that, I think I might go ahead and switch to Kamara myself, only because of the option that he gives you as far as receptions are concerned. I mean, he had 15 carries versus Stevenson's 25, but he also had 5 receptions. So if he can turn, I mean, he only had 27 yards off of 5 receptions, but we've seen Kamara make more out of that. So you know what? I'm flipping your way to Kamara. Hopefully that helps, boss man.
There you go. Hope you tear it up today, boss man. Like I said, hopefully helped you last week. I feel like when I was watching football on Sunday, I remember a play where I was like, yeah, that's right, boss man. I think that I hope you listened, and I hope we helped you out there. We got our buddy at Stan Twitter Sucks. He says sit 1, Devontae Adams, Jerome Ford, Pittman, or Ramondre. Whoa.
Oh man. Wow, I'll tell you, these are some really tough ones this morning. Wow. So first of all, I'm not going to sit the running back. So keep Ford in because he's the obvious starter with Chubb still out. Keep Ramondre. So we're going to be looking at Pittman or Adams. I mean, Pittman didn't necessarily have a great fantasy week wise last week, but he's still obviously the clear-cut number one. Devontae Adams still the clear-cut number one. Who do you trust throwing to who? Gardner Minshew to Devontae Adams or Anthony Richardson to Michael Pittman Jr.? To me, I'm actually leaning Pittman, even though Devontae Adams, is known for having big weeks, but I'm going Pittman for a bounce back big week. And here we got Joseph.
I got a few minutes.
All right.
Excellent. Yeah, good to see you, man. Good to see you. I saw you hop on. I was like, is somebody hopping on the show? Like, that's crazy.
I feel so out of the loop. I feel like I can't even look at my teams without doing this to get like it gets the blood pumping for the week to begin.
That's right. You got to feed your brain, man. You got to feed your brain first. That's the biggest deal about fantasy football. Feed that brain in the morning.
This is a good one to jump in on, Joe. We had a couple really good scenarios already, so I'm curious of your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, you got like Pittman and Adams, and there's so many guys that are good players that had a bad week one, and which ones will and won't bounce back week two. If you're sitting one here, I think I agree with you on both running backs. Jacksonville's a good matchup for Ford. They can't pass. He's going to look good again, I think. Ramondre was really good for the Patriots. They obviously need him to be effective to have any chance to win pretty much any game this season. I agree with that. And the Pittman-Adams one, I think you kind of said it appropriately, Jeff. I mean, this is a coin flip for me. Even though Adams is the better receiver and historically, the better fantasy performer, that's at Baltimore too, which is a really tough matchup for them. I think I'm kind of, Pittman against Green Bay. You don't have to worry about weather yet in Green Bay or anything. It's hard to sit Devonta Adams, but I'm kind of leaning Pittman. Where are you at with that one, Mikey?
I feel like the guy that I'm sitting in this mix right here is actually going to be Jerome Ford. Just because of everything I saw out of Cleveland last week was just abysmal. And it wasn't like, to me, like a lot of these teams you could tell were rusty, right? Like they just didn't seem to have that, like, let's go get it. Let's get, we're back at football. The Cleveland Browns, however, I feel like without Nick Chubb on that team and with Deshaun Watson as your starting quarterback, that team is so deflated that I don't think that we see a lot of productivity come out of that offense. Even that defense seemed like they were playing a little bit below par of what they can bring to the table in most outings. So I think on this one, I'm going to go ahead and sit Jerome Ford just because, man, I do not like what I saw out of Cleveland. Like I said, that did not seem like rust. That seemed like trash to me.
Yeah,
I can't necessarily. Go ahead, Jeff.
Really. I think any of them, like, it's hard to really argue. I think it'd be hard to sit Ramondre Stevenson after the week he had last week and they won and now they're at home. I think it'd be hard to sit him. The other ones, you could probably sway me, in any of the three arguments on the other three guys. It's crazy to sit Devonta Adams, but can that offense produce at all? Can they even move the ball? I don't know if they can.
And Mike, I mean, Jerome Ford had more receptions last week than Devontae Adams. So forget about his rushing attempts. So I'm gonna strongly disagree on that take. I'm gonna sit Adams. You said you're sitting Ford. We'll see how it plays out.
There you go. We got our man Kevin Turner says 12 team half PPR flex Wando Robinson, Tyler Johnson, Christian Watson, or Adonai Mitchell. Man, that's a crazy lineup right there. Joe, since you joined us late, what do you know? What do you think here?
I mean, 12-team leagues, I know there's a big difference between 10 and 12. I get it, but this is a hell of a situation to be in for week 2 already.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a Giants fan, I don't see how you can play Wandale Robinson. Jordan Love's playing. This is a no-brainer for Christian Watson. That being said, I don't know. I think I still go Christian Watson just because I don't know. Where do you guys go with this one? I don't even know.
What do you think here, Jeff? Because I think I have a different take on this.
So I guess, and we just said as far as QB wise, I kind of like Mitchell just because of the quarterback scenario. And I'll agree with you on the Wandale Robinson. Tyler Johnson will take out of the equation. So we're looking at Christian Watson or I don't even know how you pronounce his first name, Adonai Mitchell. So so between the two QBs, I'm looking at Anthony Richardson as the better QB. I get it. He only had one reception last week for 2 yards, but he did have 5 targets. And I think along with Pittman, they might have some better weeks. That's a shitty choice out of the two, but because of the quarterback situation in Green Bay, I'm leaning Mitchell, and that's tough. That's tough to say.
You know, Wan'Dale Robinson has actually had about 5 straight games with 6 or more targets. So I feel like Wan'Dale Robinson is actually the play here because I feel like he's going to be the number one guy that Daniel Jones is throwing to. I think that's like being there's so many different analogies that I can throw out right here that are just inappropriate for YouTube because it just would not be the best situation to be Daniel Jones's number one receiver in any way, shape, or form. But that said, there's still garbage time. There's still productivity coming out of that offense, albeit very little. I think a lot of that's going to be Wan'Dale Robinson. So I think I don't mind flexing Wan'Dale right here.
You know, he got me. I agree. He's right. I mean, he went 6 for 44 last week. He had another rush for 14 yards, and they just don't have that many options. So yeah, you know what? I'm sold. Sold by.
And actually, Mike, I brought up the targets for Mitchell. I said he had 5 targets, only 1 reception. I'll tell you, Wan'Dale Robinson had 12 targets last week.
Wow.
So Daniel Jones is looking his way. So I apologize to Wan'Dale Robinson for taking you off out of the equation so quickly, as if he's watching the show. Sorry, pal, if you are watching this show, but I'll flip it over the way Mike went and go Wan'Dale.
I mean, you name one NFL player that isn't watching this show right now because they want to know who's starting them too, you know. And like, yes, Wan'Dale, you just hit me up offline. We'll explain this. It'll be all right. No, I really think that because this does seem like one of those no-name lists. I think Christian Watson's another guy that could be a guy that kind of breaks away, but yeah, Malik Willis is your quarterback. So, I mean, there's really just not a high chance of that. The rest of these guys, you know, I like Adonai Mitchell. I like Tyler Johnson on their respective teams. Tyler Johnson, I feel like Demarcus Robinson's going to be the guy getting the targets there. Adonai Mitchell, I feel like it's going to be Alec Pierce. So, I mean, like, you've already got guys that I feel like are ahead of him. Wan'Dale's at least the one, but he's the one of the giants, you know, like.
The only saving grace is
think of an analogy that is appropriate right there for me.
We said it last night. If you took Daniel Jones' Washington stats out of his career, he literally would be statistically the worst quarterback in the history of the NFL. So he has
37 out of 32 starting quarterbacks.
Yes. He has historically done well against Washington. So, but I mean, 12 targets in all seriousness, that's a lot of targets, no matter who you are. So it's hard to ignore that.
Yep, that's the only thing right there is, you know, even in a PPR, that guy got you at least 10 points, and that's not bad out of a giant this year.
And by the way, and before we get into that one, so and to imply that, I mean, we know that at least Tommy DeVito is watching and texting Joe every week from his parents' basement in New Jersey. We know we at least got one. So Tommy Cutlets, we appreciate you checking in there, kid.
I feel like Gardner Minshew, we're right up his alley too, but at Seabone 775, Daniels or Goff? Jeff, lead us off here.
I'll tell you, I actually love this question. I love because to me, it's a no-brainer. The better quarterback easily is Goff, right? Who's going to have more passing yards? Easily, in my opinion, going to be Goff. But we saw the potential from Daniels last week. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. He went from 7,000 to 7,900 on FanDuel in 1 week. So that tells you something right there. Goff's going to get you some throwing yards, and he'll probably have a few touchdowns. But I'll tell you, man, Daniels is probably set for at least another or close to 100-yard rushing game with a touchdown combined with his passing yards. To me, it's easily Daniels.
What do you think, Joe?
Yeah. I pause in my head because when I originally see one of these, I gravitate to the guy who's probably going to get a rushing touchdown on top of all the passing stuff. I gravitate to Daniels, but then I think to myself, are we going a little too overboard? He was abysmal passing last week. It's only his second game. We are talking about Goff at home. That should be, I think, a higher scoring game. So it does make me waver a little bit. But in the end, if the guy goes for 75 yards and 1 rushing touchdown, you only need like 150 passing yards and like 1 pass, and you're over 20 again. And it's hard to let that go because, with Goff, Gibbs could break a 60-yard run on the first drive. Montgomery rushes it in from the 1-yard line on their second drive. All of a sudden, Detroit's got a shit ton of points, and it hasn't happened through the air. And so I am going to go Daniels here begrudgingly. Obviously, Jeff's right. Goff's the better quarterback, but I can't not bite the apple when it comes to these QBs who run.
Yeah, no, I even expect a bounce back week out of Goff this week, and I'm still leaning Jaden Daniels just because of what rushing upside does for your quarterback, man. Rushing upside is just so dangerous to your opponents. It's so good to have. Give me Daniels every single time, probably too. And I mean, yes, you're going to have, like I said, I expect Goff to have a big day today because I don't think that we saw what Amon-Ra can do. I don't think we saw what Sam Laporta can do. I think we'll get to see that this week. I think we got to see that one little bomb to Jameson Williams, who is a fade for me, by the way, this week. And I believe he's questionable anyways. Yeah. But yeah, give me Daniels because even when Daniels by the third quarter last week, I think had like 4 points or something. I mean, it was something I'm like, oh boy, well, way off on this guy. And then I check like 7 minutes later and the guy had 27. So that's what these kind of quarterbacks can do for you. They can give you that, what I like to call the Josh Gordon effect.
And I find, sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
Go, Jeff.
Well, what I was going to say is, I love Joe's sayings, and this is why we love having him on the show, man. This week we're biting apples. Last week we were sponges. I can't wait to see what we're doing next week. So,
are you sponge-worthy this week, Jeffrey?
I've never been sponge-worthy. Just throw that out there. We got at Muchicano. He says, start Gabe Davis or Jerry Jeudy in the flex. Says Puka's on IR and Romeo Dubs has Malik Willis. So he's riding between Davis or Jeudy. Joe, you're nodding your hand. Lead us off here.
No, it all makes sense. I get it. And, I think given the quarterback situation in Cleveland that we've been beaten to a dead horse, I think I go Gabe Davis here. I know Cleveland is a good defense. I understand that. However, I don't trust Deshaun Watson, even though Jeudy wasn't horrible for them last week. And this guy's got some injury stuff, which makes sense. I'm feeling the Puka injury also. And I'm feeling the Green Bay stuff too. So I'm going to give Gabe Davis a shot here.
There you go. I like that. What do you say, Jeff?
Reluctantly, I'm going to go Jeudy because Davis has let me down. And if Trans-Siberian is listening right now, I can't go out on a limb with Gabe Davis again and have him let me down because he's like Tyler Boyd, man. The guy, when I pick him, he sticks it to me and just gets 0. And when I don't, he has, 28 28 fantasy points and whatever. But so I'm going Jeudy. They each had 3 receptions last week, but Jeudy had 8 targets and Gabe Davis had 3 targets.
And so, Jeudy got in the end zone, to be fair. Jeudy scored last week, too.
So, reluctantly, I'm going Jeudy, but because I'm picking Jeudy and not Gabe Davis is going to have an enormous day. So, take that for what it is.
I feel like that only would happen with Josh Allen. I feel like that was a Josh Allen exclusive talent that Gabe Davis had. And I'm going to argue with both of you. I feel like I'm even going to start Puka Nacua right here, even on IR over both of these options. No, like for real, I feel like Gabe Davis is probably the more solid play here. I just did not like what I saw out of Cleveland last week, man. And I do not think that that's going to improve anytime soon. Unless they scale back at quarterback, unless they shut down at Deshaun Watson and they give Dorian Thomas a shot over there, or even Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston is actually next on the depth chart line. But yeah, nope, I'm gonna have to lean Gabe Davis. So it's 2-1 Gabe Davis and Jerry Jeudy. And the fact that Jeff didn't pick him makes me want to go put Gabe Davis in my DFS lineup
lineup, yeah.
Because that is exactly
he's gonna catch an 80-yarder on the first drive.
Right. Oh, we got at high to the base says, would you click accept? He's sending Waddle and Dowdle. He wants to get Josh Jacobs 14 PPR redraft. Jeff, go.
Yes, period. Yes, that's it. Especially given what happened to Jordan Love. Josh Jacobs had 18 touches last week. We said it earlier in the show. I expect him to have, while Malik Willis is in there, I expect him to have over 20 touches. Yeah, I would absolutely do that.
What do you say, Joe?
Well, both ways. I mean, he mentioned the impact to Jacobs on the Love injury, but then you got to say, well, there's an impact to Waddle, obviously, with the Tua situation. So I don't think I do this deal if Tua's healthy, but Tua not being healthy, I think I do make the deal.
I agree with that 100%. Like, I like Waddle a lot. I think Waddle is the guy to have in this trade. But for me to like Waddle, I have to have Tua Skywalker Thompson or whatever that guy's name is over there in Miami that's backing him up. And I did see that definitively Tua is not considering retirement. So looks like he's going to be going forward, coming back, bouncing back from protocol. And Godspeed, man. I hope you're okay. I don't want to see that guy in a brain bucket. Like, it's scary. Need a defense for week 2. He drafted Dallas and they're on his roster, but he played the Saints week 2, who put up over 40 last week. So he has his concerns. So we're between Dallas, Seattle, or Houston. Jeff, lead us off here.
Well, so, I mean, don't necessarily, and who did New Orleans play last week? I'm forgetting because you can't necessarily.
Carolina.
It was Carolina. So you can't, and you try not to get trapped in that pitfall of judging a player or a team defense just simply based on the week prior. Dallas still has a good defense. I think New Orleans is better than people thought, but I still don't think they're that good because I think the Panthers are just simply that bad. Saying that, I mean, not for nothing. But given that, I mean, Seattle, they're at New England. I can see the defense doing pretty well there. I just don't know if New England will turn the ball over. And Houston, Chicago's at, wow, geez, that might be a halfway decent one too with Caleb Williams and the struggles that he had. Geez, I'd stick with Dallas just because I know what they can do. I know that defense is good and don't base it simply off last week. But if you're thinking about one of the other two, I'd say Houston.
I don't mind that. I actually, I agree with the take. I think I'm going to just slot Dallas back in there. I'm really not too scared of New Orleans. I think that was more of a productivity of Carolina just looking abysmally bad. I hope they turn it around for so many of my takes in the summer that was going to say Bryce Young was going to be a good grab, but that might be a let her simmer till next year type call right there for sure. What do you say here, Joe?
I'm not against keeping the Dallas defense in. I don't think it's a horrible matchup for them, but I think that when the other two options are playing the Patriots and a rookie QB, I do think I'm going to move to Seattle or Houston. I've been on Seattle all week long, like getting them off waivers from a league perspective and stuff. But I think Jeff made a good point there. Like, the Patriots might not score a lot, but the whole point of Brissett playing is he doesn't make a ton of bad mistakes. So I'm not sure you're going to be getting defensive touchdowns from Seattle. Watch it happen now. Where Houston, Caleb Williams, and I'm super excited for this Chicago team, but they're not there yet. Keenan Allen's not 100% today. Odunze's not 100% today. It's in Houston. So as much as I love the Bears upside long-term, Houston might be the play today defensively there. I could easily see them getting some turnovers, a defensive touchdown or whatnot, even if they give up a few points.
Yeah, I don't mind it. Like I said, Houston, I feel like would be a good play. I feel like I like them over Seattle. I think I like Dallas over Seattle, but as long as Dallas has Micah Parsons, I feel like you're almost guaranteed a sack and a half. There's just certain things that I feel like that defense brings to the table that the other two can't. I think you're looking at, if Caleb Williams put it together over the weekend, again, that to me, that is another team though, that didn't look like rust. That looked like just bad. Like, that didn't look like it was like, oh man, all that he has to do is relax and sit down. But that could be the case. That happens a lot in the NFL. But
Cowboys had 6 sacks and 2 picks last week and a fumble. So 6 sacks and 3 turnovers. That's a pretty legit defensive week.
Right. We got our man Trans-Siberian backing in here. He says, Colts or Seahawks D. Brown Monday night, can't risk it. Joe Easy Flow, weigh in for my flex. Moss or Cooks? We'll go ahead and let you lead this one off, Joe.
Does he mean even flow?
I think so.
All right. Moss or Cooks? I would have gone. I would go Moss here just from a touch perspective. I don't love the way the matchup works for Moss today necessarily, because I feel like Brown plays in more passing situations and they're playing Kansas City. Cooks, I feel like Cooks is good for 50 yards and a touchdown. I guess it's just a matter of like, how do you really value that in a league? Does that make you happy? Are you good with 50 yards and a touchdown? Where I feel like Moss could have 2 1-yard rushing touchdowns and another 60, 70 yards. I'm going to flex Moss here.
Yep, I like Moss here as well. What do you say here, Jeff?
Yeah, to me, that's an easy one, just between the running back or wide receiver. The opportunity for more touches is going to be there with Moss over Cooks. And the question also is Colts or the Seattle D. Well, I think Joe just made a really good case for the Seattle D, although, Colts, they're at Green Bay with a quarterback who nobody has seen, but I guess that the Seahawks maybe have the better matchup as far as the opposing offense is concerned.
Yeah, Malik Willis doesn't go out in public very often because of the shame that he brought to his family after getting drafted. One of the only quarterbacks drafted in that draft. And good God, he was terrible for Tennessee. I don't expect it. Like I said, I mean, maybe he slots into Green Bay better. I really, really liked him coming out of college too, man. I love Malik Willis when he came out of college, but boy, he did not translate to the NFL very well. So yeah, for me, I'm also going to lean Seahawks D in this one. And yeah, give me Moss. Give me Moss.
It's real interesting, real quick. So you look at Green Bay and Miami, who are 2 playoff teams, if healthy, up and coming, young, very good. They both have these quarterback issues, and I find it funny that right off the bat, like the first thing both teams said is we're starting Thompson and we're starting Willis. It doesn't mean we're not going to pick up another guy because you obviously have to replace the depth, but that's really interesting to me that both of those teams with good rosters immediately said, we're going to go with these backups who have already looked like shit versus going after a Tannehill or, whoever it may be.
Right. I've heard rumor mill is talking about Tom Brady joining the Miami Dolphins. But I'm sure with that announcement from Tua, that probably went away. So that'd be crazy, man. Talk about going to the other side of the aisle there. Ink 2 Juliet says, got a tough choice. Either start Jaden Reed with that calf injury and a new quarterback or start Lazard with Rodgers. Need some insight. What do you all think? Joe, lead us off.
I mean, Lazard had those 2 TDs last week. It feels like fool's gold, although there certainly definitely is chemistry there. They have a relationship. The only reason Lazard's on that team is because Aaron Rodgers is a quarterback and Mike Williams didn't really do anything. So all that said, Lazard kind of has like organically crept into like the number 2 there. Jaden Reed, Malik Willis, you know what? I think I'm going to, you're not looking for 30 points from either of these guys, although Jaden Reed he's going to get some rushes too, potentially. I don't know, man. Reed is the home run play, but Lazard has the better shot to get you 10, 40 and a touchdown. He'll score a touchdown on a 3rd and 6 from the 9 or something like that. As you feel like with Lazard, that's a tough one. Where are you guys headed?
Jeff, what do you think here?
I would say, and again, we said this about New Orleans. You can't necessarily judge a player or a defense simply based on the week prior. So, like I said, don't necessarily be fooled. Now, either one of them don't necessarily be fooled, but especially to me by Jaden Reed, I think that kind of came out of nowhere. I don't expect them to have that again, but because given the chemistry that Lazard has with Rodgers that Joe brought up, I mean, he had 9 targets. It's a guy that Rodgers is comfortable with, and he's still getting comfortable within that offense. So I would say because you have Malik Willis and Jaden Reed and Lazard and Rodgers, obviously the chemistry points to Lazard and Rodgers over those other 2. So I'd take Lazard.
And I think, again, I'm going to start Puka Nacua, even though he's on IR. No, I feel like I agree with both you guys. Lazard with Rodgers is by far the better play here. And that sucks, man. Jaden Reed is so good at football. He's not going to get the justice he deserves in that stint right there, man. It's terrible. Malik Willis is that bad. It's not. You can't start any of those guys on that offense until he goes out there and proves it. At Plows and Harold says, need your help, DJ Moore or Brian Thomas Jr. And I'd like to give myself a quick pat on the back for these Twitter name covers today, by the way. I haven't screwed one of them up yet. What do you think here, Jeff? Brian Thomas or DJ Moore?
Are we talking about Brian Robinson?
Brian Thomas Jr. Brian Thomas Jr. wide receiver, Jacksonville.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. Okay. Wow. I'm I see Brian Jr. and then that flips to my head immediately. So to me, hey, DJ Moore is my guy. I've said he's my guy up there with Nico Collins. So even though Caleb Williams was fairly atrocious in his opener, hopefully he can do something. DJ Moore is a great target, just an easier target, and I think he'll be comfortable getting to the DJ Moore over Brian Thomas Jr., not Brian Robinson Jr.
I like Brian Thomas Jr. a lot. I liked him as a rookie coming in. I thought that he looked really good last week. I feel like he got the target volume going up there too. And to your credit, Jeff, for about the first 3 weeks or something like that, every time I saw it, I'm like, man, why is everybody hyping on Brian Robinson Jr. all of a sudden? I mean, yeah, granted, he was a great steal last year, but I mean, he's going probably right at ADP with Austin Eckler being there. And yeah, no, I had it wrong too the whole time. What do you think here, Joe?
Keenan Allen banged up, not going to have a full load of work today. Adunze, it's hard to lay off. It's hard not to go DJ Moore. I know it was a rough week for them last week, but he's a great wide out. He's their number one. They're not going to have the full complement of weapons. I know Thomas against Cleveland. I think I'm going DJ Moore. I'm not going to be able to sleep if Moore goes off today and I started Brian Thomas. That I can't do that.
Yep, I think with the fewer cooks in the kitchen, and I mean, if those guys are in, they may be in any kind of a limited capacity between Ozune and Keenan Allen. Yep, I think that's a three-peat on this one too, DJ Moore. But again, I like Brian Thomas Jr. as well there.
Up and coming.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the outstander on that offense right there. I liked him, like I said, coming out of college quite a bit. But then I don't know, why his name escaped me, like why I kept going to Brian Robinson Jr. when I'd see it. It's because he's changed Thomas. It's very close. Yep. Fantasy football question from Miss Bo 33. Mrs. Bo 33. See, I had to pat myself on the back one question too damn early. It says Kyler Murray versus the Rams or Anthony Richardson at Green Bay. Joe, this is our last question that I can think of so far that I see. So go ahead and send us home with this one. What do you got?
Yeah, this is a good one. This is definitely a good one. I think I'm going to go Kyler Murray here. He looked pretty good at Buffalo last week. They're playing the Rams, not a great defense anymore. I think Kyler Murray is going to have himself a pretty decent fantasy day. Anthony Richardson at Green Bay. Jonathan Taylor could go off, and they might not need a lot from Richardson today, given the fact that the Packers' offense has got no QB.
Kyler, for you, what do you think, Jeff?
I just think I'll disagree and go towards they both can run, and as we saw that last week, I think both had. I know Anthony Richardson had a rushing touchdown. I believe Kyler Murray had a rushing touchdown as well. So they both can run and have that ability. I just think that Anthony Richardson is just simply better at throwing the ball than Kyler Murray. I can't get it out of my head how wide open Marvin Harrison Jr. was, and he just simply did not see him. So because of that, and this is just kind of a ridiculous way to take this, but because of that, and that he was too short to see over the guys, to see Marvin Harrison Jr. wide open, I'm going Anthony Richardson.
I had a tweet about that on Sunday. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Pink Panther, like the original Pink Panther, where that guy comes out with those platform shoes with the goldfish in them. I'm like, they need to make these in cleats, for Kyler Murray, so that way he can see Marvin Harrison Jr. down the field.
It's like Joe Irachi back there.
You're right. Right. I'm at 6 foot. That's short for the NFL, right? I'd be looking at the back of a lot of heads too myself. So I'm not trying to height shame Kyler Murray. It's just that, man, that Marvin Harrison Jr. play was so wide open. It was incredible. For me, I'm also leaning Anthony Richardson here too. I think that they'll be able to outpace Green Bay pretty good. I do like Kyler Murray against the Rams, but I do like Anthony Richardson. Again, you throw it on the ground. What you can do on the ground. Kyler Murray is devastating on the ground when he's running. Just doesn't seem like they run him out a whole lot or very often, and it doesn't seem like he makes that his commitment. Usually with that pocket collapses, he'll usually do, to me, in my opinion, he'll do the throwaway before he'll run away with it. So give me Anthony Richardson for a rushing upside, and that's literally the one thing that separates these guys from me is that I feel like Anthony Richardson has probably about 40 to 50 more yards in him than Kyler Murray does on the ground, and that's about it. But both of these guys are going to be a solid.
He had an interesting stat line last week. Anthony Richardson only completed 9 passes, and he went over 200 yards with them.
That's crazy. Yeah. Oh, one of those, half of that was just that one play to Alec Pierce. And he said, if you don't know who Alec Pierce is, he goes, you will. He's like, you're going to see a lot of that. And, but to me, I'm like, yeah, I drafted Deshaun Jackson 10 years ago, buddy. You ain't getting me with that again.
Hey, let me throw one in at you. If we don't have any more, let me give you one real quick. I texted it to you guys, but
hit me, buddy.
Brian Robinson or Brandon Ayuk today at a flex position, half-point PPR.
We actually answered that, but
and I wasn't listening.
Up, as a matter of fact. See?
And we I think both Mike and I went with Robinson just because of the potential volume there versus San Francisco spreading it out between Jordan Mason, Debo, Kittle. So I mean the opportunity for Ayuk is not as much as it is for Brian Robinson Jr.
Eckler only had like 4 carries last week, right?
What was that, bud?
Eckler only had a few carries last week, right?
He did. I mean, he still put up 10. He had a few catches as well. He still did okay, not great. I think that you're going to see that be the split down there, and especially now with Jaden Daniels in there also running in touchdowns and things like that. But I think, again, I mean, you're going to have just the volume play with Brian Robinson. I don't think you're going to see with Ayuk, unfortunately. They could just start throwing it to Ayuk. He might look good again this week. I mean, again, that team that looked rusty. That did not look like they weren't talented or anything like that. That looked rusty. That didn't look like they looked really good and they looked really bad in certain places. But I think that was rust. I think Ayuk will be just fine. Whereas, like I said, I do not think Cleveland will. Maybe when they get Nick Chubb back. Do you guys have anything to add before we go ahead and close this one out for week number 2, boys?
That'll do it, Joe. Enjoy Fenway Park and enjoy Pearl Jam. We wish we could go with you, but have an excellent time, my friend.
Very jealous, my friend. Very jealous. I do hope you have a good time. And so with that, for me, Jeff and Joe and the Triple Play Fantasy team,